Morning. Please unmute yourself. And
Shalom.
welcome to Root Source.
Yes.
Long time no see, and let's see if you can get some light facing you and not just behind you. Is that a possibility?
Yes, we're working on it. Plugged in the wrong wire. There we go. There-
Ah, there you are.
Yes.
How are you? Gosh, long time no see.
Been a long time, man.
We only try to meet once a month, and if something happens in that once a month, then it's 2 months that we don't meet, and that seems like forever.
It's fine, yeah.
And of course, it has been a big forever for me because last month I had a grandson born,
Congratulations.
and then a week later I had a granddaughter born.
Congratulations. Muzzle top.
Thank you very much. That brings our maybe I mentioned this to somebody else. Neither of us are big sports people. Now I have 9 grandkids. So what kind of team is that?
That is a baseball team.
It's a baseball team.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep. All right. So there you go. The Ariel
Maybe
grandkids. Sounds like
maybe
a pretty
football too. Soccer, I think, is 11, isn't it? I'm not sure.
and basketball is just 5, isn't it?
Five. That's right. Yeah.
I'll go with baseball. I'm okay with baseball. When
Yes.
I was when I was growing up, I lived a short bicycle ride away from Shea Stadium.
Oh my
You
goodness.
might have heard of Shea Stadium. It seems like you've heard of Shea
Yes.
Stadium, which was the New York Mets played at Shea Stadium.
That's paradise for a kid.
If you're into baseball, I wasn't into baseball. Um, no, it was nice growing up where I grew up. I grew up in Queens, which is and really very close to what was called Flushing Meadow Park. It was
Okay.
a park in Queens, and one of its claims to fame was that northern, western, I'm not sure, edge of Flushing Meadow Park was Shea Stadium. In addition, the World's Fair was in Flushing Meadow Park,
Wow.
probably in the late '60s, I would guess.
Okay.
When I was a kid, I think there's a picture of me at Shea Stadium at the World's Fair, and they made a model of the globe. I'm not talking about something you put on your desk. We're talking about like 4 stories high or something like that. Really big, but not gigantic, like not the size of the world. So I would like to go there also. And there was also a skating rink there, not such a big deal. But the other big deal about Flushing Meadow Park, yeah, you want to, do you know, or
Oh,
couldn't be able to get
tell me. Tell me. I'm curious.
the UN, the United Nations, was based there before it moved to Manhattan on the Upper East Side.
Okay.
And in November 1948, that is where the UN sat. November 1947.
Okay.
So, what happened in November 1947 in Flushing Meadow Park? The UN voted on partition and voted that a Jewish state would be created in the land of Israel in Palestine.
Wow.
So
Man.
I was pretty cooled out by that, but I wasn't evidently I wasn't capable enough to pursue my curiosity when I was living there. I moved out of there when I was 15
What year?
in 1978.
So you were there when the Mets won the World Series with Tom Seaver pitching?
Could be.
Yeah.
I told you I'm not such a big fan. But definitely Tom Seaver, I've heard that name, yes.
So I was raised without television, and we moved to the States from Liberia after being in West Africa for 4 years in 1969 and lived in Bloomington, Illinois, halfway between Chicago and St. Louis. So everybody was either a Cubs fan or a Cardinals fan. None of my classmates were White Sox fans for some reason. And I believe the Mets may have won the series in 70 or 69. I don't remember. It's stuck in my mind because I think they're not as old a team as the Yankees from New York. But
Listen,
yeah, so it's stuck in my mind. But I was behind, all the stats. That never took with me. Like my son, he knows all the stats and all that stuff. I didn't know any of that.
I might be the worst person ever to live in Queens to talk about Mets. The Mets. I'm not very proud of that, but I think I went to one baseball game. My father schlepped me or something like that. I don't know. My brother.
You had bigger fish to fry, a Jewish state
Yeah,
to.
maybe.
Yeah.
But I was nice. And also that Flushing Meadow Park, it's probably called that because it's in a meadow, whatever a meadow is. And it's in the neighborhood. I don't know what it's called. The New York City is divided into 5 boroughs, and each borough has a bunch of neighborhoods. So I guess the neighborhood is Flushing. That's where I grew up. So
Okay.
Flushing, Meadow Park, it's the meadow of Flushing. And there's like a lake there. I guess it's not a river. I don't know. There was water there.
Okay.
And there is a Jewish tradition called tashlich.
Okay.
So tashlich means throw.
Row. Okay.
Apropos baseball. So tashlich means to, it doesn't mean to throw. Lahashlich means to throw, but tashlich is a command. Tashlich. In other words, if you're holding a gun in your hand or a knife and the cops come, they say, throw down what you have in your hand. Tashlich et ma sheyesh lecha bayad. Throw out, drop what you have. So
Okay.
the word tashlich to any Orthodox Jew of a certain level, he will immediately think of the tashlich ceremony, which
Okay.
is performed on the second day of Rosh Hashanah of the Jewish New Year. And basically, in the afternoon, you go down to a body of water and you empty your pockets of lint and any breadcrumbs that you might have there. And while you are emptying your pockets then you are saying prayers and verses from the Psalms. I think from a few prophets. I think Hosea, maybe. I'm not sure what. Saying, listen, we are casting off our sins, so forgive us our sins or something.
Okay. Yes.
So I bring that up because this was a major body of water at Flushing Meadow Park between two very major Orthodox Jewish neighborhoods.
Okay.
So all the Orthodox Jews would descend upon Flushing Meadow Park to this body of water. It probably has a name. I don't remember what it's called. I don't even remember if it's a lake or a pond. Maybe some pond or something. It was called a pond. It's probably bigger than the Sea of Galilee, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, and so you had a lot of people. It was the social event of the year. Everybody getting together from these different neighborhoods. Well,
Wow.
whatever. That's a very important. That I would guess that is probably one of possibly the most shared memory of growing up Orthodox in Queens.
So they do it at the same day, the same week.
They do it the same 2 hours,
Okay.
same hour even. I don't know. Everybody all at the same time, and I'm sure that a lot of people said, "Hey, that you might want to meet her. She's for you." Or maybe you didn't even have to point to them.
Oh,
I see somebody that I like. I ask, what's her name? Whatever. It's like you go down to the well. It's a a great tradition of how to find your intended or whatever you want to call it.
so yeah.
So anyway, why did I come up with all of this? I don't even remember.
Well, we're talking about 9 grandchildren you have,
Yes,
right?
as a baseball team.
And then the New York boroughs. So Flushing Meadow is the end of borough called Queens. Where is Yonkers at? Isn't that also a large Jewish community? Or no, not so
Look,
much.
the thing
The
is,
movie I saw in Yonkers. So
no. The thing is that first of all, New York in general is obviously, I think, probably. I would guess that there's more Jews in New York than there are the entire United States combined. I may be wrong. I'm not going to spend time looking it up. I often would, but certainly, and certainly in the 30s and the 40s of the previous 100 years ago, 80 years ago, most Jews moved like before the big exodus. Maybe there's another word for it, but certainly the word exodus is the great immigration
yeah.
from Europe and from Russia. You had over 1 million Jews, maybe even more than 2 million Jews that moved to the United States. Most of them came in through Ellis Island.
Okay.
And Ellis Island was the main port, if you can, maybe that's the right word, or the main gateway for immigrants to the United States. Today, the main gateway to immigrants to the United States is the southern border, I guess.
Yes, it is.
But in those
Texas.
days, that was the main gateway. And I would guess, I may be wrong totally, but I would guess that not only the majority of Jews that moved to the United States by far came through Ellis Island, which it's near the Statue of Liberty Island. Liberty Island, it's called today Liberty Island, and before they had the Statue of Liberty on that island, there was another name. It escapes me now. I love trivia, but whatever. It's between Brooklyn and Staten Island, whatever. Anyway, so I know that I heard that there was also an entrance from a place called Galveston in Texas. So a lot of people, a lot of Jews who ended up in Texas and in Oklahoma, maybe they came in through Galveston, maybe. But 90% of the Jews came, and I wouldn't be surprised if the majority of people who immigrated to the United States during a certain time were Jewish.
Yes. Yes.
Uh, for not for long. After some time, I don't know if it was 3 years or 10 years, then various anti-Semites said this is ridiculous, and they put a block on Jewish immigration to the United States. A block isn't the right word. Limits. There's another word, but they limited significantly. Like
Yeah.
if you had 1 million people in a year, they limited it to like 20,000 or something like that.
Okay.
So that was the end of that.
Yeah.
And of course, that was just in time for the Holocaust. In other
Yes.
words, that limit stuck around until the 40s.
Okay.
It was probably started in the mid or late 30s. I don't know. And anyway, so most Jews moved to Brooklyn, and a lot of them moved to the Lower East Side of Manhattan Island. And at some point, they moved on up to Queens, which is just north of Brooklyn.
Okay.
That's and also to the Bronx, which is north of Queens. So it seems that Queens got skipped over. I think the Jewish communities of Queens are not as old, I think, as the communities in the Bronx for some reason. I'm not sure why. And and Brooklyn, and of course the Lower East Side, very, very famous. But upwardly mobile Jews, they wanted to move out of the city. You know, they grew up there, or their parents grew up there in tenement houses. They want to move out to the suburbs. So Yonkers is a suburb of New York City.
Okay.
It's just, I think it might be just north of the Bronx. I'm not too good at the Bronx.
So it's not in a borough.
It is not one of the five boroughs. The five boroughs are Manhattan, Queens, Bronx, Brooklyn, and Staten Island. Those are the five. And the like I said, the upwardly mobile Jews, not only Jews, but they moved out to Long Island, which is east of Queens and Brooklyn. As a matter, there's another bit of trivia. Queens and Brooklyn are actually part of Long Island. They're the western edge of Long Island. It's about a 3 or 4 hour drive to the end of the island. And north of the Bronx is Yonkers, Scarsdale, other places I don't remember so well. And but the thing is that Orthodox Jews can only live. I might have told you this once. If you're an Orthodox Jew that isn't really into being a pioneer, then you can only live in walking distance from a Jewish synagogue.
Right.
Simple as that, because
A
you got to
Sabbath.
go there on Shabbat, and you can only walk on Shabbat. No
Yeah.
cars. So I know more about so that is why it's hard to establish Orthodox Jewish communities.
Okay.
A non-Orthodox Jewish community is a lot easier because, hey, come to our synagogue. I live an hour away, no problem. Just drive over. What's the big deal? And you don't even have to come, just pay dues. You know, come on Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah. That'll do the trick. But if you're an Orthodox Jew, you can drive there during the week, but you gotta go there 2 or 3 times a day, and 3 times a day on Shabbat. This is hardcore. These Orthodox Jews.
Now, is there a way to extend the border of the synagogue property with a wire?
Yes, that's something that you've heard of vaguely. It's
Yeah.
not. It's not the synagogue property. It is.
Oh,
There's another aspect. There's another aspect of Shabbat rules. One of the aspects, as I mentioned, is you're not allowed to drive. There are many, many, many rules. Another one of those aspects is that you are not allowed to carry anything outside of a private domain, your own house. In other words, if I want to go to the synagogue, I want to bring a prayer book. You can't. You can only use a prayer book that was in the synagogue. A synagogue, it's not a private house. It's a public house, but it's a house is what they mean by private domain, as opposed to a street.
Okay.
So this wire that you mentioned is you could say that it's a legal fiction, but it's what it really is a development to the word that's coming to my mind is absurdum. But let me explain.
Okay.
If I live in a house, then I can carry in my own house. We've established, yes.
Okay.
What is a house? A house has walls and a roof.
Yeah.
So they decide, the roof isn't so important, but the walls are important. Okay. So let's say you have a house that has walls. You got to get into that house somehow, right?
Yes.
So you make a gate, a door. You don't need a door. You just need an opening. You follow a door post, I guess it's called, whatever it's called. Now let's say that next to this door, you have another door right next to it. So you have the door post. Here's this house, this door, and then there's this door, right? So you have these doors are back to back with each other. So in
Okay.
between the doors, you have a little bit of wall.
The doorpost.
Yeah, you have the doorpost, you have the door, and then right next to the door you have another door. Separate doors, but they share a side of the door. This one, this door, the left door, and the right door.
Okay.
So the right side of the left door and the left side of the right door are close to each other.
Okay.
You see the picture?
I'm
So
with you.
let's say you have this wall all around a an entity, a place, and you put doors all around it.
Okay.
So is it still a wall? It's a wall with a lot of doors, right?
Yes, still a wall. Yes, sir. I'm tracking with you.
So let's say that you maximize the doorway or the gateway and minimize the wall
Okay.
so that the wall is just a post, a
Okay.
2x4, or maybe a 2x2, something that just can hold stand up without falling over.
Okay.
And the top of your door is just a wire.
Yes. So it's the doorway.
That's your doorway.
Okay.
Now, how wide can that door be? There's no minimum, there's no maximum. So that's basically what this wire is. It's a series of gateways in
Okay.
this, and so it's really a wall with a lot of entries.
I'm tracking now. I understand.
And that is what these wires are. They
But
are. It's called an eruv. The word eruv means to mix. It like mixes up all of the private and public domains or semi-public domains, like a street. I say semi-public because a real public domain is like Fifth Avenue. If you got 100,000 or 600,000, I don't remember how many people walking there, then that's called public. Less than that, you have 100 people walking, 1,000 people walking. That's low. That's not such a big deal. Whatever. I don't want to get too deep into it. Bottom line is, you bring all of these private homes in together, and you put this a roof around them, and now they're all one big private domain, which means that you can walk there.
gotcha. Makes
So
total.
it's
I get
yeah,
the
it's
concept now. I thought they had to touch to extend the borders of the property with this wire, but no, it's more than that. It's a
it's
doorway.
it. Well, again, nobody would notice that. No, nobody even goes there. In other words, the
Oh,
eruv ends. The
yeah.
phrase is the eruv ends. When something ends, there's an end of something, so it ends. ENDS. That means what is the border of this fence, as it were? It's a extremely minimalistic fence.
Yeah.
So you can't see it because it's often put up in in a non-Jewish community. In other words, with all due respect to the million Jews that live in Queens, there are 10 million non-Jews who live there, whatever the number is. So there are a lot of Jews in this. It's called the Jewish neighborhood, but the bottom line is there are a lot of non-Jews there, and it's certainly not Israel.
Yeah.
So you have to do it in a way that it does the job Jewish religiously or legally, but it doesn't interfere with people who don't care about it, their lifestyle.
So you're honoring Torah in a way. So it's more the doorway than a door on hinges. In fact, a curtain could be a door. So it's like the curtain wire without the.
No, a curtain cannot be a door because a
Okay.
curtain blows in the wind.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm teaching you all the main laws over here. Anyway,
Yeah.
what I'm saying is that the idea of being able to put up such a uh, legal uh, the phrase legal fiction sounds very derogatory, I think. But the fact is that a legal fiction is a way that you can utilize and put up on a pedestal, do the law in a way that is acceptable for society. If the
Yeah.
only way that you would be able to carry is in your own home, or like for example, the Karaite Jews who don't follow this kind of stuff, they can't carry anything anywhere. I think that's part of the reason that they dissipated pretty much. You don't see too many Karaite Jews. Karaite Jews, the word Karaite comes from kara, which means read,
Okay.
or mikra, which means the thing that is read. What is the thing that is read? The Bible. They say we only believe the Bible. We don't want to know anything from the Talmud, from the rabbinics. So
Okay.
their lifestyle is a lot less enjoyable, I would say, because they can't carry anything, because it's the rabbis that figured out how you could follow the biblical law, yet of not carrying, yet carry.
Maybe they stay home on the Sabbath.
Exactly. Exactly. So if you don't go to the synagogue and meet your intended, then what kind of life have you got, you know?
So while we're on the subject of Jewish neighborhoods, can we talk about Chicago?
We'll get there, but
Oh,
let me see if I can just get. Anyway, so you mentioned Yonkers, so there might be there probably is an Orthodox Jewish neighborhood in Yonkers. I'm pretty sure there is, but it's far from the most famous one. The most famous ones in Queens, at least, are south of Flushing Meadow Park and north of Flushing Meadow Park. I lived north of Flushing Meadow Park, and Forest Hills was south of Flushing Meadow Park, and we all met over there.
yeah. I think I saw a movie that was about a Jewish community in Yonkers, and that's where I got the question.
Yeah, I think it had the word. I think it had the word Yonkers in the title.
Yeah, it could have.
Something in Yonkers, asleep in Yonkers, or something. I don't
Yeah,
remember.
something. Bonkers for Yonkers. I don't. Interesting. Fascinating. Yeah.
And the most fascinating thing, Alan, is that we talked now for about 20 minutes about this. We spent
Yeah.
about 10 minutes on baseball and about 20 minutes on
Yeah.
it,
This is good.
it it's a tiny, 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 tiny aspect of of Orthodox Jewish life.
Yes.
Now it's a significant one, but and when I say tiny, I don't mean tiny, I mean only one of many, 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 many aspects. It's one of the bigger ones, perhaps. Again, without an Eruv, it's very hard to have an Orthodox Jewish community. But there's so many other things that are uh, must-haves, and there's a lot that like to have.
Yes. So in New York,
Yeah.
there's a stream of Judaism practicers who uh, do the thing with the chicken.
Ah,
Do you know about that community?
so the thing with the chicken, also,
Moving around their head.
yes.
Was
So
my
yeah, so the thing with the chicken is called kaparot.
okay, Kaparut. Okay.
Kaparot. 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 Or kaporis in Yiddish. And it is, again,
This is
both both the pardon me? Yeah, so
okay.
what they do is kaparot, the word might remind you of Yom Kippur.
Okay.
So it is related. They both come from the same root of kippur or kapara, which means forgiveness, pretty much, something like that. So on Yom Kippur, we're all day long in the synagogue praying and fasting. But a day before, in the morning, the day before Yom Kippur, you take a little money and you say, "Don't kill me. Take this instead. Take this money, and it's going to go to charity, to go to a poor person." And that came because at first it was a chicken. Listen, this chicken, I'm going to uh, slaughter it, and a poor family will be able to eat it. So I'm doing a mitzvah, I'm doing charity. And so you also have, God, please have grace on me, be charitable towards me, and let me live. That's the idea. So they do it with so traditionally it was done, and it's done with chickens. A crazy, sorry, an idea using live animals. How many people deal with live? Not everybody has a pet, and if they have a pet, they have a cat or a dog. And some people out where you live, maybe they have horses and maybe chickens and pigs, the people on the farm. But nowadays in Brooklyn, who has a chicken? But that's what so the very Orthodox Jews says, my mother did it, my grandmother did it, my great 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 grand, so I'm going to do it too. So they take a chicken and they do it, and then they give it right back to the person they gave it to, and then he sells it. I don't know. I'm a little less excited about that tradition. Some of these traditions, if I can get away without doing them, then I prefer.
Well, in the Bible, there were doves used for sacrifices, correct? As well as
Of course,
lamb.
no. These chickens, first of all, you don't use chickens for sacrifices. And these chickens are not sacrificed. They're simply slaughtered in a way that you're allowed to eat them.
Yes, okay.
So it's not a sacrifice. There's no sacrifices ever since the temple has been destroyed. Bezrat Hashem, when the temple will be rebuilt, then we'll do the sacrifices again. We'll figure out how that's done.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot of interesting things going on, and of course, when you take a chicken and raw, if I take a dollar bill or two quarters or something, and I go like this with them, big deal. Nobody notices. When I take a chicken and run it around my head, that's already worthwhile to say, what the heck is that?
Well, in Chicago in the 70s was a shopping district on Canal Street.
No. Canal Street was New York City.
Oh, I thought it was Chicago.
It's
My father,
obviously it's possible that there were two
yeah,
canal streets, one in Chicago, one in New York.
I
I
thought it was,
just went to Chicago and I spent a few days there, so I know a little bit about the Jewish community in Chicago, but a tiny bit. I also have friends who were there. I heard about it.
it may not be in the same place now, but at the time there were Jewish merchants. My father would often go there once or twice a year. He loved to wear suits. He was a pastor. So he'd go suit shopping with the Jewish merchants, and he would try to be the first customer of the day. And they told him a joke of the three Hebrew children that their English name was Hart, Shafter, and Marks. That's a suit company. So anyway, he took me with him once. Quite an entertaining day with him and the
So that's
merchant.
very interesting. Of course, Taylor's is a famous Jewish career
Yes.
in the early 20th century, and so I'm not surprised that it immigrated from New York to Chicago,
Yeah.
which was probably the second biggest Orthodox Jewish community after New York in the 40s or 30s or something like that.
Okay.
I'm very interested in Jewish history of the United States.
Yes.
I'm not enough to get a degree in it, but I'm not interested in anything enough to get a degree in it at this point. Maybe soon when I'll retire or something. But I'm just fascinated by the way that it developed, and I was part of it. I'm the last. I am amongst the youngest of the baby boomers.
Okay.
It's questionable whether I was born in 1963. Is 1963 still baby boomers, or is it already the next group? I don't know what they're called. But it started in the 30s, I think, from 30 to 60 or something like that, mid 30s, 40s. I don't know. No, baby boomers obviously is after World War II, so
Yes, they
42.
came home and the booms
Right,
began,
right,
and
right, 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 right.
technology catered to this generation like no other. So they grew
Technology.
up, yeah, the fad toys, the BB gun, the red wagon, it was a whole industry of keeping up with these kids. And so our generation, I'm a baby boomer too, born in 56, we've been catered to our whole lives by technology. So yeah.
A red wagon is technology? What are you talking about? I'm not
Uh,
following.
the trademarked red wagon, the branding of stuff. Yeah. The
I don't know
Navy,
what. Why? Sorry.
all the silly toys, the GI Joe dolls,
Yeah,
marketed marketed to a generation beyond just the stick horse.
yeah. It's all very interesting. I love watching movies about Jews and about New York because I can relate to it.
Fascinating. Yeah, that's great. Well,
Yes. So anyway, so there are my kids, and there's a little bit about New York, a little bit about Judaism. We got to know. Did you have any other questions that you had in mind for today?
I am much richer as a result of today's talk. Yes. So the Jews did come to the Americas. In fact, I just learned recently Columbus had Jewish
Columbus
roots.
was probably a Jew himself. Yes.
Jewish roots. I'll find the documentation and send it to you.
Oh,
On
I've seen it. Don't you worry. It goes all around our Facebook and our WhatsApp. All
I
the
even read this. This is kind of tall tale, but it could be true. Uh, some Jews settled in Jamaica, and the reason Jamaica became kind of a safe haven for the pirates is they kind of served as a navy to protect them from the Jew hunters of the day. Anyway,
very interesting.
that bad they would hunt them all over the world. It's terrible.
I don't know too much about piracy. Obviously, no pirate is a good pirate.
Yeah,
But if that's what you have to do, or that's what you feel like doing, that's what you do. What can I say?
yeah.
Nowadays pirates are really bad.
Oh
When we
man,
try, they got to be really bad in order to overcome the law, the executors of the law, the policings of the world.
yeah. So true. The Somalian pirate, that story with Tom Hanks in it. What a story.
Yeah, it's been a while. I haven't seen too many movies since I moved to Israel. A little bit on the planes, so I saw a few movies a few times.
You got to see the Entebbe raid movies. There's 4 or 5 of those
What?
on the Entebbe raid. At least
Oh
four.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I told you, the Jewish movies and the Israeli movies I catch. Anyway, so what do you got? What are you teaching about nowadays in your church?
Well, I'm doing the Hot Topics series. When you participated in that, so the number one hot topic was abortion and the culture of convenience. The second hot topic was um, can a Christian lose their salvation, and is it possible they might need deliverance from demons? Another one was
That's the same question.
yeah. Yeah, say I had 260 topics sent to me, and I had to merge them to come up with 100. So it
Wow.
creates huge topics. So the third one was
I don't get it.
wokeism.
How many people send you topics? For God's sakes, 260.
Over 200 people. Yeah. So I condensed it down to 100, but that was too many. So then another one was wokeism and how the church must or must not respond. And then, oh, I can't remember what last Sunday was. That's embarrassing.
But that's it, like five speeches, preaches, or
doing
whatever, and then you're done.
I'm doing the top 10. So
Top 10.
last Sunday was, are we focused on the Lord or are we bogged down by cultural and political concerns? So this Sunday is LGBTQIA plus issues and the local church.
Wow.
So my understanding is all those issues come under the umbrella of fornication. It's forbidden. And then local church issues where church turns a blind eye to fornication, they open the door to all sorts of nonsense. There's a church somewhere on the East Coast that is reimagining the Ten Commandments. Can you imagine that?
Reimagining.
Another church that is blessing the plants. Bring your plants to church. There's a church here in Granbury that blesses your stuffed animals. When you resist what God has said clearly, you open the doors to Craziness. So I'm going to have fun with this one.
You know what you mentioned about fornication being the if I can paraphrase, the root of all evil.
Yes.
I think it's because I came up with this, I don't remember, 20, 30 years ago or something like that. And there are three very major sins in Judaism, like the
Okay.
big three.
Okay.
And before I share with you what they are, I will say the reason is because if there's 613 commandments in the Bible.
There might be more, but yes.
Yeah, but traditionally, the Jewish way of looking at the commandments, thou shalt not, uh, 613 times in the Bible, more or less. That's the traditional number. Now, if you are approached, unfortunately, the Jews, they were in the minority since 2000 years ago. And so the idea of being approached by an enemy of the Jews with a gun, pardon me for being acronymous, what's it, not in the right time zone, whatever. Somebody came to you with a sword 1,000 years ago or 1,500 years ago and said, either eat this bacon or I'll kill you.
Oh man.
So you eat the bacon because it says in the Bible, you shall live by these commandments. V'chai b'hem. Let me find the verse. 1 second. The verse is in Vayikra, which is Vayikra is Leviticus, chapter 18, verse 5. Let's see what that is. Vayikra 18:5. I said, right? There's 18. And here is verse 5. And you shall keep my commandments and my statutes, whatever, different way, that a man or a person should do them and live in them. I am the Lord. So they said, okay, a man should do them and live. You should do them and live. You shouldn't do them and die.
Gotcha. Okay.
Which means that if the choice is between doing a commandment and dying, then choose to live.
Okay.
Except for the three big ones.
Which are
And if somebody approaches you and says, do this, go against this commandment, or I'll kill you. Okay, mister, I can't do it. I won't do it. And they are shfichut damim avodah zarah and gilui arayot. They are shfichut damim, which is murder.
murder. Okay.
In other words, if somebody tells you, this is something that you can imagine. Okay, mister, you got to go kill that guy, otherwise I'll kill you. I'm going to kill him. Be killed. Or avodah zarah, which is false God, worshiping false gods, if you will. Again, in the time of the Roman paganism, then they would say, okay, the story of Hanukkah. They put a god, a statue in the temple and said, worship this temple of Zeus or something like that. So, in principle, you're not supposed to do that. Unfortunately, the Jews did that all the time. And the third one is Gilui Arayot, which is improper sexual relations. And they appear in numerous commandments in the Bible. You shouldn't reveal the nakedness of your sister, of your daughter, or whatever, all sorts of stuff like that. Now, I say like this. Look, to kill somebody, I don't have such a... Now, of course, if nobody tells you if nobody says, I'm going to kill you unless you do this sin, obviously you're not allowed to do the sin. Yeah. But this is just a way of defining that these are the three biggies. Now, to kill somebody, I don't have much of an inclination. I don't have a yen to kill anybody. You know, I might have a yen to, okay,
You're
that
hungry.
guy left his wallet on the table. No, I'll take the wallet, you know, that. But that's a relatively small compared to killing somebody. My God, the human life.
Yeah.
Well, thank God we don't have such yetzer hara, such an inclination, evil inclination. And avodah zarah, pagan worship. The Jewish tradition is that pagan worship was obliterated
Yeah.
in about 2,000 years ago, or maybe even more, maybe 2,500. I don't remember. Yeah,
Okay.
probably in 2,500. They said, "Listen, the rabbi said, God, we can't handle this. Look what's going on in the Bible. You read the whole Bible, it's how the Jews just kept on falling for the false gods. That's the whole Bible, the whole book of Kings.
Yes.
So they finally said, listen, we can't do it anymore. So there's no more yearning to do that sin. So you have three big sins. God commanded you to make sure you don't do these three big sins. But then somehow he took away from you the hunger to do two of those three big sins. If you don't have a hunger to do it, it's not such a big deal. Okay, so command me 100 times not to kill anybody. I don't even own a gun. I'm not going to kill anybody. Obviously, people are killing people. And obviously, there are people who are doing pagan worship. Anybody who goes to India, you're going to come back with a statue. But everybody's doing fornication.
Yes.
Like all of the inclinations, all of the feelings. I want to do it. I want to do it. It came off with the other two biggies and went on to the final biggie. And that somehow society has tragically not only turned a blind eye to, but is even encouraging, it seems to me. It's
Yes.
crazy. I can't figure it out. I haven't given it too much thought. I don't like to think about it too much. As my kids say, I'm a prude, but I don't like to talk about it too much. But that's it. It's like you said, it's really the root of all evil. Everybody says money is the root of all evil, which of course that's a miss quote.
The
It's the
love of
lack of money is the root of all. No,
Reverend Ike said the lack of money. Yeah. You can lack it
it's
and still love it. So in Christianity, Christ came, to us, he's the Messiah,
yeah,
and he gave about 70 commands. Basically took things from the Torah and elevated it to the matter of the heart. Don't murder, he said, don't hate, don't commit adultery, he said, don't lust, things like that. So he commissioned his followers to go make disciples and baptize them and teach them to observe everything he commanded. So we have that happening. And then in the book of Acts, we have Gentiles becoming believers. And the first believers being Jewish, some of them thought they must keep the feasts
right,
to be true believers. Well, then you run into the roadblock. If they're not circumcised, they can't do Passover, according to the Torah.
right.
So the early church leaders, including James, the half brother of Jesus, we believe,
Wait, 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 just stop 1 second, 1 second. When did that was what the Jerusalem Council?
it was before 70 AD. Yeah.
It was before 70 AD.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So,
Of course, 70 AD was when the temple was
yeah.
destroyed, and after 70 AD, it's a moot point because there's no more
Well,
sacrificing and no more Passover sacrifice.
the question was never should Jews observe Torah. It was how much of the Torah should the Gentiles observe? Do the grown men have to be circumcised? So they came back to the first church, the first congregation in Jerusalem, and had this meeting with Peter and James, the brother of Jesus, and Paul and Barnabas and others. And they came up with a list of 4 things. Now, these things are in addition to what Christ had commanded. And they were don't drink blood, don't eat strangled meat, do not be involved with any form of idolatry and fornication. And then these 4 things were put in a letter and sent out to all the Gentile churches. And then it was reviewed again in Acts 21. So fornication was a biggie, and idolatry is a biggie.
So it's the same.
Blood
So
and
it's the same
strangled
thing.
meat. Go ahead.
So the meat stuff that it sounds very much so. Again, I don't. Have you heard of the seven Noahide commandments?
Yes, that's what I've heard. Gentiles are supposed to observe. What is that? How do they relate?
So that's what it sounds like.
Yeah,
Because again, I haven't studied it deeply enough, but I've heard this is an explanation that makes the rounds.
yeah,
That these four commandments, and of course I've read them in the text, but I don't remember well. There are seven traditionally. There are seven commandments that you can extrapolate from the text after Noah leaves the ark,
right.
and they are six negative commandments, what you're not allowed to do, and one commandment that you have to do.
Okay,
And so the six, and so the way that I remember them, first of all, they're the three biggies that I mentioned: do not murder, do not do worship idols, and do not fornicate. That's the word that we've been using this hour. And so those are the three. Then we're left with another four. And the mnemonic to remember them is A, B, C, D. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet. Aleph stands for Aver Minachai, which means a part of an animal that was not slaughtered. To eat in other words, to rip off a limb from an animal and eat it without slaughtering the animal.
okay.
So that is very much like the strangled meat and the blood.
Wow. Yes, cruelty. Wow.
Cruelty to animals vis-a-vis
Yeah,
eating them.
yeah. And it must have been a big
That's
Gentile thing.
yeah. We always remembered frog's legs, for example.
Yeah, and Marmite.
Oy vey. No, don't say
Parents would eat
that.
Marmite. It's just
What Marmite is not kosher? Maybe
isn't it
we eat
blood?
Marmite in.
Isn't it jellied blood?
I don't know what it is. Probably no. It's probably kosher Marmite. It's like pretend Marmite. Anyway, that sounds gross. So that's the Aleph. The Bet is Birkat Hashem, which means blessing God, but of course that's a euphemism for cursing God.
Okay.
And then Gimel is Gneva, which is stealing, but I think that it is considered it's referring specifically to kidnapping.
Okay.
And D, so those are the big three that I mentioned in the beginning, and that's A, B, C, Aleph, Bet, Gimel. For those three that I've just mentioned now, they are eating a limb torn from an animal, a live animal, cursing God, and kidnapping. And the big three again are murder, idol worship, and fornication. And the seventh is that you should establish a court. It's a positive commandment that you must establish a court of law for your community.
Wow.
In order for there to be able to
That's good.
what should we call it? Follow these laws. In other words, create laws, there's laws and other laws, so you'll be able to live as a normal community.
Wow.
So again, to review the passages that you mentioned in Acts and the other place that you mentioned and say, you see this word, it really is referring to that. I don't know, but it sounds like an abbreviated version of these seven laws. It's possible that the tradition of the seven laws really only came about around the same time. In other words, the Gentiles were being. I'm coming up with something now. I might be totally talking out of my ear, but the Gentiles were being were coming to faith in Christ. The Jewish missionaries, perhaps you could say. Funny, the Jews who were making souls or whatever they're doing. He was the apostle to the nations. Is that what Paul was? Is that what they call him?
Yes.
So he was a Jewish missionary missionizing to Gentiles. No, we've come a long way. Anyway, so he was trying to bring these pagans into the Jewish faith of Jesus, and maybe there were at the same time other non-Jesus Jews who were said, "Hey, this is a good career. I'll do it too, but to my flavor." So maybe that's when they came up with the seven. It's possible.
Yeah.
So maybe at the same time these developed. I don't know. But anyway, that is the idea that not pagans but Gentiles should follow the entire Torah. It's something that Orthodox Jews today can't wrap their heads around at all, because the whole Torah was just for Jews.
Right. Okay. You froze up. You still there? That was a good note to end on.
But when you read that, but first of all, of course, when you're a Christian, it's a very important. Obviously, it's a tremendously important part of the development of Christian faith that Gentiles came in, and so exactly how that happened is what is described in the passage that you mentioned.
Yes.
But really, notwithstanding that, my Christian friends who are fascinated by Torah, they read the five books of Moses. They read about the feasts. Everybody's talking about the feasts, but there's hundreds of other commandments there, and they say, "Wow, this talks to me also." The most famous ones, of course, are the feasts and the tassels, the tzitzit.
Delete? Yes.
So, all right. So you deal with it, but it's all very fascinating how God put into Gentiles' hearts to search him, to search out to him, to reach, to search for him, and to understandably say, "Well, God, I want to do what you want. What I want to do, what you want me to do. I want to be a servant of God." Okay, so a servant needs to know what the master wants of him. Otherwise, what's the significance of it all? Okay, so they say, "Okay, is there like a book that you can tell me what I'm supposed to do?" Well, as a matter of fact, I gave a book just like that to the Jews. Great, so I'll just read it. That's what you want from us. So the Jews say, "What are you talking about? That's cultural appropriation. This is just for us." Okay, but what am I supposed to do? I'm a Gentile. I'm not Jewish, but I really want to have a relationship with God. Don't kill anybody, and you're okay. That's about it. I'm laughing about it a little bit, but I find it to be a difficult issue that the Jews for thousands of years did not think, what does Judaism have to say to non-Jews who want to have a relationship with the only true God?
Yes.
And so that is happening today very slowly, and only by a handful of people are dealing with it.
Yes.
It's fascinating. And of course, what does that have to do with Christianity is also a fascinating aspect, because the reality is that it's Christians who are most interested in the Torah, understandably, because the Christians were never told, "We have a New Testament, and there was once upon a time an Old Testament. We threw it away, and there's no copies of it. Nobody bothered to translate it, and it doesn't have anything." No. The
Yes,
Old Testament is part of the Christian Bible as much as the New Testament.
yes. I call it the First Testament. I don't
The
call it
First
the Old
Testament.
Testament.
So people say, okay, it's not a forbidden book. And usually when you pick up a book, you look a little, you thumb through it, but you say, okay, now I'm going to read it. You start at the beginning. So obviously that's what people are going to start reading and say, wow, this is interesting, fascinating. And then they say, okay, what does that have to do with me?
Yes.
And so now we Jews who have been the carriers, the upholders, the guardians of this book, we have to figure out what it has to do with them. It's fascinating.
So Genesis and the first part of Exodus is probably the most read books in the Gentiles' Bible. They get lost when the tabernacle happens.
Right.
All the repetition, and they're not as inspired to read. They're fascinated up to that point, and then they have to have some
Which,
help.
which is a shame because halfway through Numbers and all of Deuteronomy is
Still,
very fascinating.
the Deuteronomy is a review of stuff. So yeah, cool.
That's what they say, and it's a bunch of it is review, but it's a lot of new stuff too,
Yes.
and certainly not the. It's a review. At the beginning of it is the review, a short review of the history. I mean, how much history? 40 years. That's such a big deal. But the commandments it's just fascinating, and the prophecies. There's a lot in the book of Deuteronomy that talk about how the Jewish people are going to mess up, and
So in my survey, the topic that came in at number 4 was Israel and the Middle East. But because I dealt quite extensively with it, as good as I could, around a year ago, I just pointed people to that podcast, directed them to our archives.
great.
Uh, so I covered where
Wow.
God on multiple occasions promised that land. I primarily dealt with the land. Promised the land with an audible voice to Abraham, and then an audible voice to Isaac, and then an audible voice to Jacob. That latter,
Right.
that was there. And even Jacob, a lot of people recognize the blessing that Isaac gave Jacob, that Jacob cheated to get it, but they forget that Isaac gave him a blessing again before he left town, and that included the land.
That's
And
right.
then at
That's
the
right.
burning bush, here comes the audible voice of God with the promise of the land. And yeah, and so that was where I covered and the boundaries. So I do have a question regarding the land.
Yes, sir.
So Isaac wasn't born until God gave the promise to Sarah. So this may be why she was tempted to recommend Hagar, because Abraham received the promise. All right. So when the promise was initially given and the boundaries were given, it was this huge land. I'm giving this to your seed. And then when they inherited the land, then God gives, the boundaries. Obviously, they couldn't take all that land, but smaller boundaries. Could it be that the descendants of Ishmael were included in that first promise of the land? They were the seed of Abraham and the descendants of Keturah. I'm not going anywhere. It's not a gotcha or a rhetorical question. It's just an honest, curious question. Could they be included in that huge promise from the Nile to the Euphrates?
The
Because they're living there. Anyway, what do you think?
well, are all of the Arabs
I don't think so. They
um,
claim to
are
be,
they all descendants of Ishmael?
or Keturah, or Esau. They claim to be, and I doubt it. But anyway,
Listen, there were 70 nations described over there.
yeah, that's true.
And ostensibly, I mean, some of them moved out to Europe, whatever. I'm not going to start going into that too much, but the answer to your original question is could part of that be that
Could Ishmael be included in any of the land promise pre-Isaac as a picture became clearer? I don't know. Before
I gave
Ishmael
him all
was
the
born even.
things.
Yeah.
Um, the answer is that in the Bible, it says, if I can find it, one second. Where would it be? Maybe at the end here. Yeah. In chapter 25, verse 4, sorry, verse 5 and 6. So you see verse 5, you got that already.
Yes. This is after
And Abraham gave everything that he had to Isaac. That's verse 5.
Okay.
And verse 6, and to the sons, the children of the concubines of Abraham, Abraham gave them gifts and sent them away from Isaac his son, eastward, towards the east. So the way that these verses are understood is that the land was given just to Isaac, and not only Ishmael, but afterwards, as it says in chapter 25, verse 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and Abraham took another wife, and his name was Keturah. I think you mentioned Keturah here. Keturah, and she gave him Zimran and Yokshan and Medan and Midian and Yishbak and Shuach. And Yokshan gave birth to Shva and Dedan, and Dedan had Ashurim and Letushim and Leumim, and Midian, Ephah and Efer and Chanoch and Avidan, Eldaah. All these are the children of Keturah. Did I read that pretty well as far as your English translation is over there?
I'm tracking with you. I can hear it. May not say.
So, so there were many, 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 many children of Abraham that we barely noticed them, and nobody's noticed them. Who the heck heard of these people anymore? And it's not like somebody says, "I am a great, 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 great grandson of Letushim."
Yeah.
Well, I haven't heard of him anymore. So they got a gift. They didn't even get a blessing for a couple of generations, and let them fend for themselves like the rest of the world. And that's the answer. As far as your average Jewish Torah studier,
Yes.
the idea that you know what, which son is he really talking about? And all right, so people can talk about it, but what I just said is the brush off answer that most people will give. And again, there are people who do a little bit more study that will push more into the question, but
Yeah.
that's the answer.
You know what blows my mind is when Joseph's brothers sold him into slavery. Ishmaelites and I think Midianites were involved. These were his
That's right.
cousins. Yeah.
It would
Like,
seem so. There was his cousins, first maybe second cousins, but if they were only 70, there were only 70 people went down to Egypt. That's what it
yeah,
says. It's very clearly 69.
yeah, through Jacob. Right.
And of course, that happened decades after Joseph was sold into slavery.
Yes.
So, how many Midianites and Ishmaelites could there have been by that time?
Enough
It's a
to
great question. That
maybe.
again, the traditional Jewish thought, we discuss what we discussed, and we embellish what we embellish, but some shouting questions we don't notice and we don't care about too much.
Yeah. Well, I mean, going back to Noah, we're all cousins anyway, but they were closer cousins, that's for sure.
For sure. No, what are you talking about? It's barely two generations.
Yeah, that's true.
Ishmael, Ishmael was the same generation as Isaac.
Yeah. And his
Ishmael, I don't know how many kids he had. Oh no, what are you talking about? It says somewhere.
same generation as Keturah's six sons. So yeah, they were all
No, no, in the same chapter 25, verse 12, it says, and these are the generations of Ishmael, the son of Abraham, Hagar the Egyptian, and these are the names of his sons. The firstborn was Nivayot, and then came Kedar and Abdeel and Mifsam. That's four. Mashma, Duma, Masa, Hadad, Tema, Yetur, Nafish, Kedma. That's 12. So we had 12 children when Ishmael only had one. How many children could those children have had? 12 is a lot, I think.
oh,
So let's say that each one of his children had 12 children.
yeah,
So Isaac only had one child. While so through Isaac, by Isaac's generation, it was only one, but because his father only had one kid, but Ishmael had 12 kids. So Isaac had 12 cousins, right?
yeah.
That's 12.
Or nephews, half nephews. You froze up again. There we go. Fascinating.
I'm saying that he only had 140, he had 12 cousins. Isaac had 12 cousins.
Okay.
And so let's say his his cousins' kids, each had 12. So it's 144.
Oh, boom.
144 in the same generation as Jacob. Then Jacob had his 12 kids. So 144 times 12 is, let's say, again, this is maximalizing.
Yeah.
12, that's about 1,000. We can quickly do the math.
And then go to Egypt for 400 years.
So that's almost 2,000. So while Jacob had 12 children,
Both
or
sides.
if you will, Isaac had 12 grandchildren, Ishmael maybe had 1,800 grandchildren if everybody was as prolific as he was. But even still, that's not really a nation, is it? Or maybe it is. Maybe
You
it's
have, you have Esau,
just
and
one
Esau,
second before I get these.
and
We're
then
thinking of the
400
Midianites.
years of slavery.
One second, we're thinking of the Midianites like a nation. Like I look across the behind me over here. I look across the Jordan River. It's Ammon and Moab. It's the children of Lot. So
Right.
there's a nations. There's millions of people over there. But maybe all of these nations in the book of Genesis were a tribe.
Yeah. Interesting.
That was possible. And Esau, you were saying Esau.
Now, Esau's descendants, the Timonites, all
Yeah, what
those,
about it?
more cousins,
Yeah, we got cousins all over the
more
place.
descendants of Abraham. Yeah.
They're all descendants of Abraham. And not to mention the the souls that Abraham made. Does that phrase sound familiar to you?
Yeah, his people, his men, the men he acquired, his
The many
community.
that he acquired, the souls that he acquired.
It's like a spiritual father.
It's right there in the beginning of Lech Lecha in the chapter of Go Forth from your land. In chapter 12, That's the famous chapter where it says, go forth from your land, and I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you, and through you all the nations will be blessed, and I will curse you, the ones who curse you, and bless you, the ones who bless you. And he went as God commanded him, and Lot went with him. And then verse 5, and Abram took Sarai his wife, and Lot his nephew, and all of their belongings that they acquired, and the souls that they made in Haran. Is that the way that it says there by you?
Yes.
So the way that we understand the souls that they made in Haran, they converted people to belief in the God of Abraham.
Okay.
So Abram was quite the missionary.
Yes.
He was converting people left and right. So these are also the descendants of these people also have a little bit of Abraham in them. In other words, I'm addressing what a lot of my Christian friends often tell me. Oh, I did the 23andMe and I've got 2% Jewish. And I say you don't have to try to be 2% Jewish. That's that's not what counts as far as we Jews are concerned. But you connect back to Abraham. You don't connect back to Jacob. You connect back to Abraham. And Abraham and the Gentiles that he brought closer to the God of Israel.
Yeah.
And that is tremendous, I think.
So there's verse 7. To your descendants, I will give this land. So is that the descendants through Isaac, or that's his descendants in general? That's my question. Obviously,
Again,
as history progresses, it becomes more and more Isaac specific, but could this be more general?
so the way again, that's an interesting question, and it would be an interesting thesis to try to prove. But as far as the Jews are concerned, this whole book is just about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob,
Yeah.
and the 12 tribes, and really the 12 tribes don't count as much as the tribe of Judah, because he's the one that stuck around until the book of Esther,
Yeah.
and the other 10 tribes either were exiled and dissipated and disappeared, or a few of the lucky ones escaped to the southern kingdom of Judah and assimilated within the Judahite tribe. And anybody who's not part of the Judahite tribe or the Jewish or the tribes of Israel that managed to stick around, they're the other. And if anybody converts to Judaism throughout the centuries, which happened, okay, thank you very much. Here you are. We'll forget where you came from, and we're all children of Abraham.
Yeah.
This is a very good question because
Yeah.
it says in the prayers, God of our fathers. God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob. So if a person is a convert, if he didn't come from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, then how can he say that such a prayer? God of our fathers. And so different answers have been given, but the ones that come to mind are his soul stood at Sinai. And so he became a member of the Jewish people then.
Hmm.
Or he is a spiritual, I don't know. I don't remember the answers. I can look it up. I actually learned this issue recently, but I learned it at like 6 o'clock in the morning, so I forget it fast. His spirit is a spiritual son, and therefore he is assimilated into the Jewish people, folded in, grafted in, and there we are. Now, of course, the concept of grafted in, I'm taking that, I'm culturally appropriating it from the Christian perspective. But I do think that it's a Jewish concept.
Yeah.
It comes right there from chapter 12, Genesis 12, Second. Verse 3. I will bless those. Why don't you read it?
I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who curses you. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed.
So
So
shall be blessed.
we get
The
in on
original word, pardon me?
they get it, the non-biological descendants of Abraham are blessed in Abraham. That's how I read that.
Uh, Not the non-biological. All the nations, all the families of the land, all the world will be blessed through your descendants.
Okay,
Through
got it.
you, actually. Through you, but we understand it's through your descendants. Through the Jewish people.
Yes, okay.
But that's not what it says over here. What it really says is the word v'nivrechu, again, there are different understandings of the Hebrew, of difficult Hebrew words, different ways of understanding them. So since the word bless is there, bet resh kaf, so it's easy to translate it, and virtually all the translations will be blessed. But really what that word means, Alan, will be grafted into you.
Oh my,
V'nivre, lavrich, lavrich. The word lavrich is
okay.
a agricultural term, and it comes from, and it means to graft in, to take a branch and to graft it into so into you, all the nations of the world will be grafted.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yep. Tell my friend, we've been really at it today.
We have. It's been really good. Thank you so much for your time. From
Thank
base,
you.
from
All right,
base.
we're only going to meet each other in another month or so. Okay, see you then.
All right.
Okay, so let me wish you a happy holiday season,
You.
Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year. We'll talk in the beginning of January, Bezrat Hashem.
Sounds good. Thank you.